Well, welcome back. Let's get into, let's start getting into some really, really good fundamental things that we need to know for this class. Once again, this is where you want to take really good notes. This type of stuff is what's going to be on your test, and even more than what's on your test. This class, once again, what I'm going to give you in these early tapes, especially this one, is going to kind of set a stage for a lot of what we need to know a little bit later. We're going to cover the 5 parts of the brain that are basically associated with psychology, with memory, thoughts, and behavior. So let me give you those first of all. First of all, we have the frontal lobe, F-R-O-N-T-A-L, lobe, L-O-B-E. The frontal lobe is actually located right back behind your forehead, okay? And once again, you know, you've got your brain that comes back, your brain comes back around and it's attached to your spinal cord here on the brain stem, kind of has this shape that comes around. And, you know, it's really interesting because I also teach human anatomy. And once again, I don't know, maybe I've had you for some human anatomy classes. And if not, I would really recommend those. Be glad to have you in those as well. I have a really fun, diversified set of degrees. I have science, so I do chemistry and human anatomy, and then I have psychology. And it's really amazing because there's something called biopsychology, which is a combination of the science and the psychology. And so I kind of think it's neat that I can look at it and express it to you from both sides of that. So the frontal lobe is right here behind your forehead. Okay, the frontal lobe itself. Picks up is the storage of working memory. So right now you're taking in information, you're taking in all of the stimuli, you're taking in all the sights from your eyes, all the sounds from your ears, all the touch that you have. You're taking in everything from the 5 senses. Now, where's it going from there? Well, it's all going to the frontal lobe. The frontal lobe says, okay, this is my working memory. Think about how much stuff you're taking and encoding into the working memory. It's like your short-term memory. Here it goes, like all of a sudden, let's say that a fire truck goes by and I hear that and I'm like, oh, that sorts out, okay? But think of all the things you can't tune in and see, okay? You can only consciously focus on certain things. We're going to talk about how many at a time you can do. It's fascinating, okay? So the frontal lobe is encoding and storage of working memory. All the things that come in go into your frontal lobe. Now, what does that frontal lobe do? That frontal lobe then has to sort things out, has to move them around, has to decide what to do. It has to decide what's important and what's not important. Okay? So you've got this great big file cabinet storing all this stuff coming in, and it's like a computer. In a computer, you got your short-term memory and you got your long-term memory, your RAM and your ROM. And so when you have your short-term memory, you can only have so much. Okay? So that's the way your frontal lobe is. And we'll talk about it a little bit later. We talk about your stages of sleep, but you say, you know, why do I need a certain amount of sleep? Well, we'll talk about that in this class because sleep is a really interesting part of life and growth span. But part of sleep is where we actually encode working memory and actually sort that out and process that out and put it in different parts of the brain. That's amazing. So 5 parts of the brain. There's so many cool things I want to get to and tell you. But I got to get these fundamental things done. Let's get this done. So frontal lobe, encoding and working memory. Okay, that's what the frontal lobe does. Then we have the hippocampus, H-I-P-P-O-C-A-M-P-U-S, hippocampus. Okay, the hippocampus is a part of the brain that's responsible for explicit, E-X-P-L-I-C-I-T, explicit memories. Wow. Well, let's talk about what explicit memories are. Okay, explicit memories are memories, first of all, that are in, first of all, a lot of our memories that later on when I talk about long-term and short-term memories, the long-term memories, you know, that you have. Okay, now once again, you have the working memory, and we're going to put them in long-term. A lot of those are in your unconscious. Wow. So explicit memories are memories that give you everything based on the senses. Oh, so explicit memories, I say to myself, or when I'm a little kid and I'm learning my colors, okay, I'm learning that when I see something that's yellow or that's blue or that's green or whatever. I'm also learning sounds. That's a high sound, that's a low sound. Well, then as we get older, okay, and I'm learning touches. I've got a little 11-month-old grandson, and our favorite thing is just to go in the backyard and take our shoes off and walk on the grass and feel what that feels like. Because you know what he's doing? He's storing explicit memories that he's going to need to have to be functional. Okay, he's touching the fence, the wooden fence. Then he's picking up rocks. He picks up a lava rock out of bed. He feels it rough. And then he picks up another rock over in the little fountain area, and it's smooth. And oh, he just feels that. And he's storing that. And it's going through his frontal lobe, it's going through his working memory, and then it's going back into his hippocampus, and it's storing these explicit memories, which are actually going to be unconscious memories later that are going to come out. And he's storing rough and smooth and everything he can store. Because the way our brain works on associations. The more associations we have with something, the more we can describe it, the more our brain can associate it with it. As intelligent as we think we are, okay, and we have a logical part of our brain, and we'll talk about that here in a little bit, but the part of our brain, this hippocampus, is the part that we go back to, okay, and we say, okay, what can I relate that to? Is it rough? Is it smooth? What do I have to describe it? And then I've got to go back to an association, okay? So when I'm a little kid, okay, up to 1 to 2 years old, I have to get every single explicit memory that I can store, so I have something to draw from. Now, as we get older, and we throw stuff out, we can still put stuff in our hippocampus, but it's much harder to get those associations. If I give you a word that doesn't exist, okay, let's do this real quick, okay. If I say, and I'm just going to make up something stupid here, so I'm telling you right away that this is just some goofy word. Let's just say framatolytic, okay? So I want you to think about the word framatolytic. Is it taping? Oh, okay. So I want you to think of the word framatolytic. So as you think of that word, you're like, wait a minute. And all of a sudden your brain stops because you hear the word frame and you associate it with a picture frame, maybe. Maybe you did that, maybe you didn't. But your brain is in this constant search. It's spinning now to try to find something where it's heard that word or some type of association with it. And because I just made it up, you're trying to find your brain. Now let's get you off of that, okay? Now let's think about something that's yellow. Boy, now your brain's just going through these flashcards, boom, 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 of all these things that are yellow, because all you're going to do is associations until you go on to the next thought. So the hippocampus is critical. It's responsible for explicit memories. Memories that are all the senses that we have that we take in. Wow. So that's that one that's like that song where I smell the grass and it takes me back to high school and the football field, or I smell, I remember my grandmother lived in, my parents grew up in Indiana, so we would go back and visit my grandparents, and my grandmother's house always smelled a little musty because they had this incredible amount of humidity, and depending on where you're at, we have students taking this class from all over the United States, so you might be able to relate to this. So it just kind of had this musty smell. And I had a basement several years ago, and I was down in that basement, and the water was dripping a little bit, and it had that musty smell. And I go, well, that's a good smell. And then I kind of looked, I thought, it's really not a good smell. Why is that a good smell? Because it kind of took me back, and I kind of remembered my grandmother's house. Well, that's your grandmother. That's the person that spoils you, and cooks whatever you want to cook, and just treats you amazing. So I had all these good memories. But when I smelled that musty smell, my hippocampus associated that musty smell with my grandmother's house, which led me to the good memories I had of my grandmother. So once again, what are we doing? We're setting us here to understand the different parts of the brain, to be able to understand where our conscious is coming from, where unconscious is coming from. Now, then we have the prefrontal cortex, okay? P-R-E-F-R-O-N-T-A-L, cortex, C-O-R-T-E-X. That's the part of the brain that's responsible for emotions. Wow. So there's one part of the brain that's responsible for mad, sad, glad, happy, all the emotions that we have come from the prefrontal cortex. So we'll have to look at what triggers it to make it go to those emotions. Then we have another part of the brain called the amygdala. What a name. A-M-Y-G-D-A-L-A. Amygdala. Okay? A-M-Y-G-D-A-L-A. Okay? Now, the amygdala is responsible for fear detection, okay, and is essential for unconscious emotional responses. Okay, well, what did we say? Okay, for fear detection. Oh, because what's first of all, what's the main thing about our body? Is it just so we can be happy and have all these things? No, it's survival. So in the amygdala, we know that there's certain type of behavior that we have to say, okay, we are in danger. There's some type of fear. Something's wrong here. And so all of a sudden the amygdala automatically jumpstarts our heart, makes our heart beat faster. We start sweating because our respiratory system goes up. And we're literally ready to fight or flight. We're ready to fight or we're ready to run. So the amygdala is responsible for fear detection, but it's essential for unconscious emotional responses. Wow. So we didn't really know a lot about the amygdala 10 years ago, but now, so we understand, so we're like, I wonder why that person's defensive. I wonder what the trigger is. I wonder why this is. So amygdala, responsible for detection of fear, okay, and responsible for unconscious emotional responses. And then the last part of the brain that we're going to talk about is the basal ganglia. Now, the basal ganglia is a rounded, oh, must be allergic to parts of the brain. And so the basal ganglia, we have the brain here, okay? The basal ganglia is a round section, okay, inside the brain. And it's really interesting because it's interconnected structures, okay, wound together of all the neurons, and it connects in different parts of the brain. And so your thoughts can travel basically extremely fast, like at the speed of light, 186,000 feet per second. And so what happens is the basal ganglia can connect different parts. You're like, well, how does it get from the working memory to the hippocampus, which is explicit memories, to the prefrontal cortex, which is emotions, and then the amygdala and all the different parts of the brain? The basal ganglia connects that, so automatically the basal ganglia is pulling this part out and that part out and sending it to all the different parts of the brain. It's kind of like we have 5 different computers in our brain, and one of them might be for senses, one of them might be for word association, another one might be for all the different sounds that we hear. So the basal ganglia is like all of a sudden something happens in the working memory, and we start looking for associations. So our brain, our human computer starts going, okay, what do I have? What do I have? What do I have? What do I have over here? What do I have over here in the amygdala? Am I in danger? Okay. What do I have over here in the hippocampus? What's the background things that I have? You know, like remember that rock when you were a little kid? Is it smooth? Is it rough? And we're looking for all the things that can allow us to make an association with whatever goes into our working memory. So that's pretty cool. So let me just review real quick. Once again, this video is the 5 parts of the brain associated with human psychology. Frontal lobe, encoding and storage of working memory. Hippocampus, responsible for explicit memories. Prefrontal cortex, responsible for emotions. Amygdala, responsible for detection of fear and unconscious emotional responses. And then the basal ganglia, which connects the brain. Now, the basal ganglia, we say, helps us control learning because it's where we pull all the stuff out. So the basal ganglia, I want you to know that it connects the brain, and we also say that it helps control learning. Wow, because what is learning? Learning is picking up the associations that we have. So we're going to stop with that video. We're going to move on to the others. Now, what we're fixing to move into research. We're fixing to move into research techniques of why things are important. We have a lot of research terms, and the reason we're doing that is we're giving this credibility, this research credibility. So we're going to stop there, and I'll see you at the next video.